Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm 43 years old. For many years, I've neglected my health, not working out enough and eating without concern for whether or not what I was eating was healthy for me. I used to be quite fit, actually, and I played a lot of sports. But over the years, I began to just let myself go. Where I once had a thin, muscular build, I now have rolls, and doing even the simplest task makes me feel out of breath. Sadly, I know that I have become obese. If that wasn't bad enough, my husband and son left me because they grew tired of being around me. My husband told me that he no longer was attracted to me. For a while before he left, I knew that something was wrong. He just didn't treat me like he used to. We stopped going on weekly dates, and he began to make comments on what I was eating. I thought that maybe if I took on the role of planning dates for us to go on, that it would help. I tried to pick exciting locations that would interest him. And I started to do the chores that he typically only ever did. Thinking that maybe the reason that he was so unhappy was because he was under too much stress from work, and that if I made his life at home easier, then he would appreciate that and be happier. But none of that helped. I began to notice that my son began to pick up on my husband's behavior, and he too began to make comments on my weight and appearance. At the time, I assumed that there was something wrong with me since both of them were saying the same things. But I later found out that my husband had been confiding in our son and slowly turning him against me. It honestly hurt so much to not only have my husband saying hurtful things to me, but now for our only son to do so as well was too much for me to take. I remember one day I was out driving around when I got a phone call from my son.
Hey, Mom, what's going on with you?
This was the first time that we had spoken in a few weeks that didn't involve him being mean to me, so I made the foolish decision to engage in conversation with him. Hey, Michael, I'm okay. Just out running some errands.
That's not what I meant. What are you going to do about Dad's new girlfriend? Do you not feel ashamed that he is just out there cheating on you? Why aren't you divorcing him?
Wait a minute. What are you talking about?
Yeah, this latest one is actually pretty nice. I've met her a few times and she's really good looking too. Unlike you, she isn't obese.
I couldn't believe what he was saying to me. My own son was insulting me and telling me earth-shattering news in such a callous and malicious way.
Honestly, I'm hoping that Dad will divorce you and marry her instead. She's a much better person than you. She even plays basketball with me.
How can you speak to me like this? Do you have no respect at all for your mother?
Why would I? Dad's girlfriend is younger, smarter, and way better looking than you.
But why hasn't your father said anything to me? Why are you telling me these terrible things?
Because I want you to divorce Dad so that he can pursue a happy life with her. If you do it now, then maybe you can spare him any additional hassle. It's not like you have anything to actually offer him anymore. And before you even ask, I have no intention of living with you, so don't even think about trying to get joint custody.
I'm your mother. How can you be so cruel to me?
Cruel? Are you serious? How could you be so cruel and not keep up your appearance? Do you not know how embarrassing it is to have a mother as fat as you? Do you not know that I have to lie to all of my online followers and friends about you so that I won't get embarrassed? At least with Dad's new girlfriend, I can finally take family photos together and post them to social media. I won't lie, she's gorgeous, and I've gained lots of new followers thanks to posting pictures of her in a bikini.
I had suspected for some time that my husband had been cheating on me, but to have it confirmed like this was far too cruel. For my own son to speak to me in such a mean way hurt more than anything I had ever felt before. As painful as it was, I knew that I needed to get to work to set myself up so that once the divorce proceedings began that I could protect myself and my future. I knew that any kind of reconciliation with my husband, and unfortunately my son, wasn't going to happen without a miracle occurring, and I resigned myself to a future without them. I set about contacting the credit card companies we had cards with, as well as our financial advisor. I wanted to gather as much evidence for my husband's cheating as possible. I knew that if I could prove his infidelity, that I would have a strong case to get compensation, and so I printed out as much information as I could gather. And then set up an appointment with a friend of mine who was a lawyer. However, when I went to his office, the folder that I had placed all the paperwork in was empty, except for a picture of my son. In it, he was pointing at me and laughing. Instantly, I knew that he had destroyed the paperwork I had gathered. I can't believe this, but my own son destroyed the evidence I had gathered. But I have no doubt that I can find it all again if I contact our financial advisor and credit card companies.
Are you serious? Your own son would do that to you? It sounds like he has completely sided with your husband.
About a month later, my husband and I got divorced. We both agreed to let our lawyers do all the negotiations, which was fine by me. I had made arrangements with mine to go after any money that he could, and with the evidence of my ex-husband's infidelity. He was able to file for a great deal of compensation. The day after the paperwork was to be delivered to my ex-husband, I received a text from my son. He was angry that I was going after his father for compensation. I knew that he wouldn't see reason, and so I replied that I was within my rights to receive that money since his father had cheated on me. He of course disagreed and was surprised that although he had destroyed my paperwork, that I had backup copies. In the end, my lawyer did get me over $45,000 in compensation, but I ended up having to pay $35,000 in child support since my son chose to stay with my ex-husband. That part really hurt, but there wasn't anything that I could do about it. After all the paperwork was wrapped up, I ended up selling my house as it was far too expensive for me to live there by myself. And I found a small basement apartment where I could stay until I figured out what I wanted to do as far as living arrangements were concerned. The first months were very lonely, and I found it hard to eat on a regular basis. Every time I tried to eat, I found myself feeling sick from all the worry and stress. Slowly, though, I noticed that this was causing me to lose weight. At first, this alarmed me, but then I figured that maybe I should take this as a sign, and I chose to change my diet entirely and to start going to the gym. Between the much healthier foods and all the working out that I began doing, I started to feel healthier and happier as well. I kept setting goals to achieve, like being able to run for 30 minutes straight on the treadmill, and after I did that, I set longer and longer goals, and every time I surpassed them, I felt proud of myself, which made me want to keep going. A few years passed, and I was in the best shape of my life, when I suddenly got a call from my son.
Mom, you have to help me. My new mother has turned into a nightmare of a woman.
What are you talking about? I thought she was perfect.
No, she drinks too much every day and has gotten Dad to do the same. They're never sober, and neither of them even has a job anymore because of it. To make matters worse, they've both gained so much weight from drinking and poor eating. Neither of them ever cooks, and we just constantly eat fast food.
It hurt me to hear that my son was in such a situation, and so I promised him that I would look into things. The next day, I contacted my lawyer and made arrangements to file for sole custody of my son, as well as child support. I knew that it was a long shot, but not long after I did, the court sent out an officer to check on my son's living conditions, and when they saw how bad they were, they charged my ex-husband and his new wife with child neglect and endangerment. The charge carried with it a 3-year prison sentence, which made it so that he lost custody of our son. Being sent to prison, he was, of course, unable to pay child support, but that was okay. My son would at least be safe with me. It took a while and a lot of therapy, but my son and I managed to repair our relationship and have grown closer as a result. There isn't a day that passes that he doesn't apologize for his part in what happened. And while it was hard for me to do, I have forgiven him. And I am very grateful that we have a stronger relationship today. It's unfortunate that we had to go through so much pain to get where we are, but knowing how much work he has done to become a better person makes me so proud of him. Thanks for watching. Please like the video for the algorithm.
Hello there, my name is Miguel, and I wanted to tell you a cautionary tale about something that happened to me. I was driving home early from work one day with my boss. It had been a really slow day, and my boss had offered to knock off early and for us to go fishing instead. I was excited as I love fishing, and so I agreed. As soon as we pulled up to my driveway, though, there was a strange car sitting there that I didn't recognize. Confused, we headed inside. My boss waited in the mudroom while I went to my bedroom to get my fishing gear, which I kept in the back of my closet. As soon as I walked into the bedroom, I saw someone jump out of the window, and then I saw my wife lying naked on our bed. I quickly put two and two together and knew instantly that the car outside belonged to the man that had just been fooling around with my wife, and so I accused her of as much. Instantly, she broke down in tears and apologized for what she had just done and swore that it had been a one-time thing.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking, but I swear that I will never do it again. You're the one that I love and want to spend the rest of my life with. Please forgive me.
I didn't know what to do. She did sound truly apologetic, and she appeared to be remorseful for what she had done. I wanted to believe her, as I still loved her as well. Was this truly the one and only time that he was here? And do you swear that this will never happen again?
Of course, my love. I don't know what I was thinking. I just met him today, and I swear that this will never happen again.
Angrily, I told her that I needed to go for a drive and clear my head, but that I would be back much later. Apologetically, I told my boss what I had just witnessed, and that I was no longer in the mood to go fishing. He of course understood and offered for us to go back to his house and watch a soccer game. Anything to help get my mind clear. Gratefully, I accepted, and we drove off across town to his place. Once we got there, we went inside and began watching our favorite team playing when his wife came home. She was 9 months pregnant and had just come from an appointment.
Oh, hi, Miguel. I didn't expect to see you two so soon. What happened to the fishing trip?
Before either of us could say anything, she continued.
Oh, and congratulations on the new car as well.
This confused me, as I hadn't bought a new car in years and told her such. I then asked her why she had thought that I had a new car.
Oh, well, my doctor's office is near to your house, and I've seen a silver car in your driveway every time that I go see my doctor. I had just assumed that it belonged to you.
This angered me, as I knew the car that we had seen in my driveway earlier had also been silver, and so I asked her, "And how long have you been seeing that car in my driveway?" She thought for a few minutes before responding.
Well, I've been going to see that doctor for about 6 months now, and I'm pretty sure that I've seen it there every week since then.
I knew that she was telling me the truth and that my wife had lied to me. Instantly, I had the idea to check the account we shared for our favorite shopping website. You see, it kept track of all the things we have ever bought and when we had purchased them as well. There, on the site, I saw that my wife had purchased dozens of pieces of lingerie, sex toys, condoms, and even gift cards for hotels. I knew that none of those things were used by the two of us. After all, we had been trying to have children for close to a year and hadn't used condoms once in all that time. The dates on all of the purchases stretched back to nearly a year and a half before, which confirmed that my wife had lied to me. Angrily, my boss, his wife, and I stormed back to my house, and sure enough, that same silver car was in my driveway again. We assumed that whoever it was that was cheating with my wife had left in such a hurry that he had forgotten something, and sure enough, when we got into the house, we could hear them arguing about being caught. As quietly as we could, we all pulled out our phones and snuck into my bedroom and caught the two of them in the act and took dozens of photos. I wanted to hurt that guy more than anything, but I kept my calm and told both of them to get out of the house and not to come back. Pleading, my wife attempted to try to convince me to let her stay, but I wasn't having any of it. I told her to pack up a suitcase and to get out. And then I showed her what I had discovered and how I knew that she had been cheating on me for a long time and that I wasn't going to put up with it anymore. That night, I got drunk and cried a lot, but thankfully my boss and his wife stayed over and comforted me. I didn't know why they were being so supportive, but I definitely appreciated it. The next day, they took me to see a lawyer, and she told me that between the photos that we had taken and the evidence on the shopping website, that we had more than enough to not only file for divorce, but to also get my soon-to-be ex-wife to pay for alimony. On top of that, considering how long the affair had gone on for, she even mentioned that we could go after my wife's boyfriend for alimony as well. I was shocked, but I knew that this was something that I wanted to pursue. And so I gave her copies of everything that I had and left it in her hands. The next day, I was venting to my boss about how all of this was even more aggravating since my wife's parents had always told me that I wasn't good enough for their daughter. And that I didn't treat her right, which always bothered me since I was always the one to do 95% of all the chores around the house. In fact, I couldn't recall the last time my wife had even emptied the dishwasher. Smiling, my boss told me that we should make a trip over to their place and show them the photos. Maybe it wasn't the right thing to do, but we did just that. At first, when I showed up, they were dismissive and treated me like they always did, acting as if I was below them. But then when I produced the photos and receipts of all the things my wife had bought, they quickly shut up and became despondent. After a few minutes, they were in tears and began apologizing for how they treated me over the years. It felt great to have them apologize and for them to know the truth about their daughter. Not long after that, my divorce was finalized, and my lawyer was true to her word. She ended up getting me alimony from both my wife and her boyfriend, and with my wife no longer in the picture. That money did wonders for me to reestablish my life. She had always been someone to spend far too much. Our bank account would grow, and then she would go on a spending spree, and the account would hemorrhage money until I begged her to stop. But now with her gone, and with her and her boyfriend paying me alimony, I was finally able to not only build up my bank account, but to also do a lot of overdue repairs on the house. It was hard at first living there without her, but as time went on, I realized that I was far better off without her. And I'm happy to say that only a year later, I ended up finding someone that truly appreciates me. I hadn't realized just how little my wife did around the house until my new wife moved in. Instantly, she took charge of cooking and cleaning. There were days when I would work overtime, and I would come home to a loving partner who had made a hot meal for me and appreciated the hard work that I did to bring home extra money. She even worked a part-time job on top of that so that we could afford to go on holidays from time to time. It was truly a blessing to have someone that did half the chores around the house and treated me like a king, while I treated her like the queen that she is. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.
My name is Heather, and I am from Toronto. I live with my dad and stepmom. My mom died when I was very little, so I never really got to know her, and for many years, it was just my dad and I. We were happy together, and I had lots of good memories with just the two of us. Then one day, Dad met another woman. I love my dad, and I want to see him happy, so I was in support of him getting back out there and dating again. She seemed amazing, and I loved her. She was always so sweet to me, and I enjoyed spending time with her and my father. Eventually, my dad decided that this woman was the one. He was going to ask her to marry him, and I was so happy. Their wedding was great, and I was even a maid of honor for them. It was great. After a few months, she was basically like a second mother to me. But I started to get the feeling something was off with her. She loved to be on her phone, even when she was with me and my dad, but that wasn't a problem by itself. My stepmom had a small group of friends that she was very close with, so she texted them a lot. Sometimes it was so bad she didn't even look up from her phone at all. She'd just sit there and giggle to herself. A few times I even tried to ask her about what she was laughing at, and she told me,
"Oh, don't worry about that, Heather. My friends just told me a funny joke, that's all."
Well, what was the joke? I love jokes.
It's nothing. You wouldn't like it.
I didn't think much of it at the time. After all, maybe it was just a joke I wouldn't understand. But I tried to ask her again later and got the same answer again. I couldn't help but feel like she was hiding something from me. But over time, I forgot all about what she said to me and continued with my life. A few weeks later, I decided to go to the gym. I wasn't too out of shape. In fact, I think I'm pretty attractive. But I was feeling a little chubby, so I headed out. As I was about to leave, my stepmom stopped me and asked if she could come too. I was excited. I thought it would be a great bonding time for us. We got to the gym and I started to work out, but she just sat around on her phone like usual. Except this time, I saw her taking photos of me while I worked out. I decided to question her about it. Are you taking pictures of me? Why are you doing that?
Don't worry so much. It's like before and after photos to show your progress.
I thought it was a little weird since I was mid-workout when she took them, but I was too busy exercising to really focus on it. I saw her secretly take a few more pictures of me before I left. She hadn't lifted a single weight or even exercised at all. My stepmom just sat nearby on her phone texting and laughing. Finally, I finished up my workout and we headed back home. That night, I was cleaning up my stepmom and dad's room when I noticed a weird light coming from their nightstand. When I glanced over, I saw that it was coming from my stepmom's phone that was charging there. I was a little curious, so I took a peek at it. Of course, it was a message from one of her best friends. That part didn't surprise me at all. But it was what the friend was saying that shocked me. The message read, "Look at that fatty go. Good for her, she sure needs the exercise." I was shaken. Surely they couldn't be talking about me, right? I was probably just being paranoid, but I just had to know. Curiosity got the better of me, but I couldn't just take her phone. So I waited, and while I waited, I texted one of my own friends. But as we sat down for dinner, I thought that I would try one last time to talk with her about it. "So what did you do with those pictures you took of me today?"
Oh, don't you worry about that. I'm just keeping them for myself to see how far you come after a while.
I wanted to believe her, but there was something wrong here. I had to find out for myself. After supper, my dad went to bed while my stepmom stayed up for a bit longer. As usual, she was sitting on her phone laughing and texting. I watched her from the corner of my eye, wondering what this funny joke is that she refused to tell me. Finally, she went to bed too. I waited for an hour, then decided to make my move. I slowly crept up to their door and creaked it open. It squeaked slightly when I entered, but I could still hear my dad snoring, so I thought I was in the clear still. I grabbed my stepmom's phone from the charger and snuck back out of the room. I had asked my friend to meet me here earlier, so now I took the phone to him. I knew he was great at technology and hacking, and he was able to break into it in no time. I pulled up the chat my stepmom was in and gasped. She'd posted the photos she took of me working out there and then said to everyone there, "Hey guys, look at this. She's actually at the gym for once." All her friends were commenting the same thing too. They were all talking about how fat and ugly I was. It made me want to cry, seeing all of those mean things about me. I scrolled through the chats, reading some of the messages. It turns out my stepmom had been bad-mouthing me this whole time. Even before she had married my dad, she had been calling me horrible names and claiming I was fat. Without any of the group members knowing, I added myself to the chat secretly. Now I'd know for sure whenever my horrible stepmom was gossiping about me. As the days went by, I got more notifications. Sometimes I saw my stepmom laughing to herself like usual, but now I could see what she was laughing at. One of her friends had just said I look like a goat this time. She texted a response of "She really does. It's hilarious." But that wasn't what bothered me. I could take her insults fine. But then she started to insult my dad. She called him lazy, stupid, and all other kinds of names behind his back. I wouldn't stand for this. So I unleashed my secret weapon. That night, I once again took her phone. This time after I got in, I went straight to her dating app. I saw it when I first got into her phone, but I was too busy with her text to question it. I scrolled through her profile. She was trying to find a new boyfriend while she was still married to my dad. I was really mad now, so I decided to get some revenge. I changed her profile picture to the ugliest lady I could find online and put the phone back. The next few days, she seemed very depressed, and I felt proud of myself. She texted the group chat saying, "All the guys online are calling me ugly and fat. Why are they being so mean to me?" I kept an eye on my stepmom from then on, and I saw she deleted the dating app, feeling sorry for herself. She quit talking about me as much too. I guess having a bunch of strangers insulting her really helped her realize how wrong she was. She still acted sweet and caring, but this time I think she really meant it. She started to realize how lucky she was to have a husband who loves her, and to have a daughter like me too. Her group chat started to talk about other things instead of gossip, and she began spending less time on her phone and more time with us. I think, with enough time, we'll be a real family again. As long as my stepmom doesn't go back to her old habits again, that is. Thanks for watching, like, share, and subscribe.
My name is Zane, and my wife Allison and I met while I was working abroad. I was an engineer, and she was an English teacher. We lived and worked in Korea and Japan for a while, and then returned to America to be with family. We got married, and she settled down into an elementary school. And I worked at a company that let me work in the States for most of the year. We were happy, but it wasn't perfect. After being married for a year and a half, we still hadn't managed to conceive. We tried every trick in the book, even visiting a lady who recommended essential oil baths and crystals. No luck. We were growing desperate, but we weren't ready to give up. One day, my mom told us to come stay with my dad for a week because my mom had had a fall, as was in hospital. She'd broken an arm, but was confident that it wasn't anything serious.
I just don't like the idea of him home alone. He's a capable man, but he's not used to being on his own. Just be there to keep him company, and to many give me a hand when I get back. It'll take me a while to get used to this cast on my arm.
It was easy enough getting time off of work. Allison and I packed a bag each, and we made our way to my parents' house. At first, everything was fine. My dad and Allison got along well, and have always. My mom thinks Allison is lovely, and she's always been treated like a member of the family. I always thought we were so lucky for the family relations being so positive. That's why what happened was such a shock. We'd been at the house for a few days when I had to attend a work meeting. I let them all know I'd be back later. My mom was back from the hospital at that point, but was due to attend a physical therapy session that afternoon. And I went to the meeting. Nothing seemed weird when I left. When I got back home a few hours later, though, I knew something was amiss. My wife was nowhere to be seen, but her purse and phone were on the kitchen island. She usually couldn't be found without her phone in her hand, so I was immediately suspicious. Where was she, if not working on her computer or talking on the phone? I knew my mother wasn't home because I'd gotten back in the middle of her physical therapy appointment, so it should have just been my wife and my dad. And while they got along well enough, they never did stuff together like my mom and Allison did. I knew something was up, and I was right. I went to my parents' bedroom, and there was my wife with my dad. What are you doing? They got dressed quickly, blushing and apologizing the whole time. And then they tried to explain what was happening while I paced the living room.
Your dad really wants a grandchild.
What has that got to do with anything?
Well, you're sterile, so the only way to have a baby is with your dad. That way, we're keeping it in the family, and everyone wins. He gets to have a grandchild, and we can have a baby.
Everybody doesn't win. Are you insane? If my dad wanted a grandchild, he'd be better off having you get artificially inseminated. If you became pregnant with his kid, then that wouldn't be his grandchild. It would be his kid. God, Allison, it would be my sibling. Don't you understand how messed up that is?
I hadn't thought of it like that.
I couldn't believe my wife would be so stupid or that my dad would be so disgusting. I called my mom to let her know. I felt bad that we were both going to have our marriages ruined in the same day, but she deserved to know. Mom, I have some bad news. I found Dad and Allison together in your bed. Allison says they were trying to make grandchildren, but that's insane.
I know about all that, dearie. It was my idea.
What? You can't be your idea? Mom, why?
Because I want a grandchild. You've made it very clear that you're not capable of doing it. We thought we'd speed the process along. Your father offered, and I agreed that it was for the best.
I was furious. I couldn't believe that this was happening. I thought we were happy. I'd already looked into alternative options for us. At this stage, we don't know if it is a biological problem or not, and if it is, we don't know who. What I do know is that we didn't have a child, so she chose to have sex with my dad rather than talk to me about it. I left the same day. Before Mom was even home from her PT, I was in my car on the way to my house. I packed up everything I owned, called my boss, and asked to be shipped out on the next overseas assignment. Anywhere but America, I told them. I ignored all the calls and emails and texts from my wife and parents. I had nothing else to say to them. But on the night before I left for Germany, I sent them all an individual email. One to my wife telling her that our marriage was over and that as she cheated on me, she would be getting nothing. Another I sent to my father with a civil court date in place where I intended to sue him for slander and abuse, and another to my mother telling her that she has not only lost the chance at a grandchild, but also she has lost her son. I hired someone to stand in my stead at the court case and knew that I was going to come out of it in a better position than my father. He's not only coerced my wife into intercourse, but he'd also lied about me being sterile, and then he destroyed my marriage, which constituted as abuse. I was awarded a tidy sum of money. And in the scathing email he sent me a month later, I learned that he'd had to pick up another job to pay off what he owed. In doing so, he was underperforming at his actual job, and this had led to him being fired. I felt vindicated. One night, about 6 months into my time in Germany, I went to a bar and met a girl.
What's a man like you doing in a place like this?
Just looking for someone to make my night interesting.
Then let me let you buy me a drink, and we'll see if I can be of service.
We hit it off immediately and started dating not long after. I never spoke to my family or Allison again, and a month after I married Bessie, she fell pregnant with twins. I was so happy, and we were able to raise our child in a happy home, away from manipulative parents and cheating wives and all the toxicity I experienced there. Bessie knows about my past and is just glad that I was able to move on. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe.